Hello and welcome back to my Endor Imperial Base toy box along with Finn once again. This is part 2 of the build exercise for the shield control room. In part 2 we will complete the build by adding in the doors all of the logic as well as the ceilings. A few cleanup items before we get started on that. In the last video I failed to place this ability terminal, so I placed that here as per my tour video where you saw it. And under the properties, went ahead and set the character type to any. You can set that however you like. Time limit defaults to 30 seconds. I left it there. You can switch that however you like if you want to use the ability terminal. I'm using the ability terminal because there really is no good way to put explosives in to destroy the power generation system like they did in the movie. So my plan is to use this terminal once it's hacked to sabotage the system to self-destruct. Now last time I mentioned that this block was a little bit too far over to the left, leaving a little bit of a gap. Not that you can see it that well from the far end, but go ahead and correct that now. Perhaps you already caught the error and fixed it in your toy box if you're recreating this. So I'm just moving it just one nudge back to the right there, and that fixes that space and corrects that error. And one more thing that I forgot to do was when we put in the buttons, we used the trigger area trick to embed the buttons into the air conditioning decorations from the decorations drawer. And once I get into position, you can see there's some gaps on the top and on the side there between the two air conditioning units that serve as the housings for the buttons. So I want to put some basic blocks in there to kind of fill those gaps. Just makes it look a little bit better. So I have a small floor piece here, and the theme is going to be modern, so set the theme, and we can slide two of those in on top of each of those air conditioning units, and then we'll need another piece that will fit in there, so we're going to need to connect it to the path, so that's the better orientation for it. So place it down and we'll go ahead and just connect it to this path that we put in part 1, and we did turn off the path so nothing moves until ready to turn it back on. So under the properties here, forward, backward, -2, and then the horizontal -6 to slide it back into its position there. And we definitely want reverse one way and stop, because when we turn on those on that path for the doors to operate, we don't want that piece to be moving as well. So this is what the result looks like. I like those pieces in there. The modern gray color works well, and it kind of just fills in the gaps and makes it look smoother. So while we're here, we'll grab a couple of these 1x3 block walls. And you can orient this however you want. I'm going to orient mine that direction. And we'll place a couple of these off to the side, theme it first. Once again, we'll go back to our Coruscant metal tile theme. That's what I'm using for my primary doors. And we'll go ahead and connect these up, one to each path. This is going to be our master door, like I did in the bunker build. I had one door that served as a master, and then it had logic connections to all the other panels that were the slaves. So reverse one way and stop is the only property we need to set on these doors after we hook them up. No adjustments are required to the other properties. So we'll do the same thing with this one. Anchor the camera, and we'll go down and select the movement style to reverse one way and stop. The way my paths are laid in, reverse one way and stop is what makes the default position of the door in the closed position. So I've added a few extra creativity toys here, a time delayer, and I've set the time delay to 3 seconds. And as you recall in the last video, we set the cooldown on these to 3 seconds. So that's the significance, is the cooldown period of these button casings will match the time delayer setting of 3 seconds. We have our sound effects generator, and I'm going to leave the properties right at their default position. We'll go ahead and hook up a locator to it. Alright, now we'll start doing our logic. So these buttons are going to do 3 things. So new logic connection when it's pressed. First thing we're going to do is reverse the path of the master door. Once I can point to it. So toy box path reverse. The next thing I'm going to do, another new logic connection when the button is pressed. We're going to deactivate this other button to prevent the other player was in there, so we don't get simultaneous button presses to confuse the logic. And the third thing it's going to do is going to start that 3-second time delay. Do the same connections with this button. So the first connection, when it's pressed, the master door will tell its path to be reversed. Again, not always easy to point to it. So toy box path reverse. Do another new logic connection when pressed. We will deactivate this button. And once again, when that button is pressed, the third thing it'll do is start the 3-second time delay. Now this time delayer is also going to do 3 things. So when the delay is completed, it's going to close these doors again by giving a reverse command to the master door. So you have 3 seconds before the doors will close again. Again, another new logic connection when the delay is completed, we need to reactivate both of these buttons for the next time we want to open the doors. So that takes care of those logic connections. Go ahead, we can turn on our paths. I want properties, that's what I want. Turn it on, we'll leave the speed at 100 for these doors. And we'll go ahead, we'll turn this one on. And speed 100. Alright, we'll hook up the logic from the master door here. So when that path has been reversed, we want to also reverse the path of the other door. And from the master door, when the path has been reversed, we'll generate our sound effect over here. So once again, under the general category, and I'm going to look for the deactivation sound effect. Makes a nice swishing sound. Alright, move our locator over here next to the door for the sound effect. And I'm going to move these creativity toys down underneath. And you'll notice from part 1, I have gone in and added this 6x6 block set to Calhoun's command power disk theme. Alright, for these blast doors, I'm going to sit in like this. Again, you can spin this around and orient it as you wish. I'm going to orient mine this way and get them up out of the way. And going to change the theme. I ended up liking the rivets for this door. The rivets theme. So over here to the left, we'll find rivets. Eventually. There it is. So set the theme. And then we'll place a second door over here. And we can hook these up to the path. And on the properties, lock my camera first. Endpoint, I'm going to set to 80% so that it doesn't retract all the way into the wall. It's going to be sticking out of the bulkhead just a little bit like in the movie, so you can see it, that the door is there. Now for defaulting the door closed, I use reverse one-way and stop, but I want these doors to be defaulted open, so I'm going to use one-way and stop instead. So here on the properties, as part 1, we turn this back on with the speed set to 45 to match the sound effect that we're going to use. And we can see once we turn that on, it goes to its default position of open, one way and stop, and it's not fully retracted into the wall because we used an endpoint of 80%. And hook up the second door here. We're going to use the same exact settings. So new logic connection, exit out to anchor the camera. Properties endpoint 80%. And one way and stop, so it defaults to the open position. One way and stop. And under the properties, we'll go ahead and turn that on and set the speed to 45. I failed to do that on the last video. I did get it this time. So when we turn it active to on, the door goes to its 80% open position. Alright, for the logic for this, we have a trigger area. We have a locator, another sound effects generator, and again the properties are just default on and 100%. And we'll hook up our locator. And we have a text displayer, and the properties here, text duration doesn't matter because I'm using a text style of proposal, so it's going to ask the question. And you either have to accept or cancel that proposal. So the trigger area is entered by player any. Go to our text displayer. There's no great sayings here, but I found the best one was just to use the question and say ready. Now, new logic connection, when the text proposal has been accepted, come over this, make this left door the master. So toy box path, and we will do a reverse. And we got a glitch door here, so just go to properties, toy box path, grab any of these properties and toggle it back and forth, and that will snap it back into its proper position. Alright, on our master door, when the path is reversed, we'll go ahead and reverse the path on its counterpart on the other door. Actually, I need to go back into spark mode here. Select the master door again. Logic connection, when the path has been reversed. Come back out to our sound effects generator and generate our sound. So general, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to humming machinery, like we used for the bunker entrance doors, inner and outer doors. Alright, now we can place our locator for the sound somewhere here close to the door in the middle, wherever you like. And now we'll move our trigger area in. I just wanted to cover that outside portion of the control panels there. So I'm going to reduce the size of it here. Shrink it down. About like that should work. So that's how I have that positioned in there. And let's give it a try. Enter. Text displayer asks us, are we ready? If we accept, the door is closed, we get our sound effect. Enter the trigger area. Are you ready? You accept. The door's open, and if you hit cancel button, nothing happens. So that's the logic for our blast doors. Just a little extra tidbit. So the next thing we'll do is our visual and sound effects for the power generation system. So down here I've added some more creativity toys. I have 3 locators. Notice the direction that the blue the little blue point is facing. It's facing towards us here in the camera. You'll want to have your locators oriented the same way. Properties on this sound effects. I reduced this volume because the electricity sound effect we're going to use is quite loud, particularly when you're in a room. So I set it all the way down to 20, and it's still quite audible. And even at 100%, it's very loud. Even 50% is very loud. So I have a repeater here, and the rate will set it at 5. We have an effects generator for the electrical effects, a counter, and the properties here, target count 2, and all I did was took the visible display and turned it off. And we have a dynamic trigger, and target has been set to a locator, and we're going to use a distance of 48. This is a little bit of logic that I learned from Professor Toybox. I have a time delayer here set to 0.25 seconds, and that's for our kill zone. And just give a slight little hesitation before a character or enemy enters, and we have the kill switch there. Of course, we're going to need ourselves another trigger area, which I had not placed, so that will be our kill zone for any player or character that enters the power generation source. And this first locator is going to have 3 connections. It's going to be the location for the dynamic trigger. It's going to be the location for the visual effect. And finally, that first locator will be the location for the sound effect. Now these, so once again, that locator serves 3 purposes: dynamic trigger, effects generator, and sound effect generator. These next 2 will only have 1 connection each to the effects generator for the visual effect, and that's it. So we can do a locator connection right from that toy and come back to the 3rd locator. And now all 3 locators are hooked up. So new logic connection when entered by a player any. I'm going to come over to the effects generator, and we're going to play looped and go down to electrical effects and the radial energy impact. It's a cool looking effect. Again, new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to turn on our repeater. So select the repeater to on. And now that repeater at a rate of 5, which is the correct timing for our sound effect. So repeat, come over to general. And there's a couple of electricities. There's this first one, which I didn't really care for. I think the electricity 2 sound effect sounds a whole lot better. So you have to scroll down a bit before you find it. There it is. So I used electricity 2 as my sound effect, and the repeater set at a rate of 5 works well for that. Again, another entered by player any. We're going to come over to counter and increment by 1. This is the Professor Toy Box trick. Again, new logic connection on the dynamic trigger. Not entered, exited. When exited by player any, we'll come back to the counter and decrement the counter by 1. Now on this counter, this is how we're going to turn off the visual and sound effects when there's nobody in the room, no players in the room. So when 0 is reached, we will stop the looping effects for the electrical visual effect. Again, new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we're going to turn off the repeater. That will stop the sound effect. So we only get that sound effect and that visual effect when at least one player is in the room. If no players in the room, those effects are turned off. So I'm going to grab this first locator, the one that has the 3 connections, and this is going to be in the front of the power generation corridor. So at the top of that first set of Dr. Doofenshmirtz's innators, go 1 spot down and place it underneath the second set of innators. So that works well for the first visual and sound effect, and it also is why the dynamic trigger is set to 48. That's a good distance for that first locator position. So again, here at the top of the first set, go to the second, third, fourth, fifth, somewhere here in the middle between the 5th and 6th. I'm going to place mine right there and go 1 spot down. Alright, we'll grab the third one here. Actually, I did not go 1 spot down. Make sure you go on that second one, go 1 spot down. I'm just noticing that now as I'm doing my voiceover. So here from the back of the chamber, 1, 2, 3, the 4th set from the back, 1 spot down. And that gives us about an equal spacing there. So see that middle one? I left it at the top of the innator. I intended to move it 1 spot down. It's probably not a big deal, but I'm just noticing now that I made that error. Okay, our kill zone, when it's entered by any, that will capture players and enemies, or any other NPCs that you might add into your toy box. We're going to start the time delay. So a split second after somebody enters that trigger area, quarter second, 0.25, when the delay is completed, come to our kill device and say defeat, which will defeat anybody. And then a new logic connection on the kill switch. When defeated, we got to do that Papa H classic scream. Classic scream, I should say. That's for you, Papa H. There's your classic scream. So that sets up the kill zone. Now we can move this into the power generation corridor. And this is how I oriented mine. So if you look at these blocks here, you see how it's kind of like halfway right through the center of those blocks. That's how far into the room I set it. And I'm going to put it on the floor. It's about right there. And I'm going to grab this tab. And we'll stretch it across the room and move it up. So about like that. So there is our visual and our sound effect. If I go into the toy editor here, there is no player in the room, and the visual and the sound effects have been removed. That's the Professor Toy Box technique to save on memory when there's no players in the zone. And as soon as Finn re-enters, trigger that dynamic trigger, which then triggers the visual and sound effects. And we have our kill zone set up. And if any player or enemy gets knocked in there, you get that Papa H classic scream. One more time for Papa H. There you go, buddy. That one's for you, brother. It is so obvious when you're watching a movie and they have the classic scream, isn't it? That's a great thing. Alright, we're going to need some trigger areas to throw in our ceilings here to blend into some of these pieces. So I'm going to cover up the top of these Death Star panel lights. And I'm going to kind of center these two doors as well as try and capture the top of those helicarrier pillars. And same thing, we need one for this blast door and one for that blast door. I'm going to grab this 1x3 block. Again, we want our theme set to Calhoun's Command. Start out here at the beginning of the hall. And those trigger areas allow us to slide these blocks into place. And we'll place a couple 1x3s like you see there. And a train cube there. A couple more 1x3s will fit along that wall. And we'll need a 3x3. Will fit in just like that. A 1x3 beside it. And we have one more gap to fill here. We can throw in a 1x3 and another terrain cube. Now, I can remove these trigger areas. I'm leaving that other trigger area because I'm going to need it. Now to put in our ceiling lights, I'm going to need a block in the middle between the two of them to cover up a gap that's visible when you're standing on the floor underneath the lights, which I didn't like. Excuse me. Go to platforming toys and grab this Droid Factory floating platform. You can see it has lights underneath it, so it works well as ceiling lights. I'm going to have the lights, I oriented my lights so that they're running lengthwise down the room as you enter the room. And there's some hoses and pipes hanging down that you can see. So there's that one large one there on that far edge, and that's how I'm going to orient that so that large hose or pipe, whatever it is hanging, is up against that wall. And I'll spin this one around 180 degrees so that that large hanging hose is facing towards the entrance door into the control room. Like I said, that leaves a gap there, particularly visible when you're on the floor level. So grab this trigger area, use our trick again, and our 1x3 block will blend in now and fill that gap. And it looks quite natural when you're standing underneath it if you were to pan up and look. Alright, some finishing pieces on top to help reduce any light gaps, as well as hopefully reduce the likelihood of enemies jumping up through the blocks to the roof. Still may need something to prevent that, like a trigger area with a kill zone up on top. But that's for later when I get around to building the logic. So the build's complete. There is our shield control room with the power generator corridor. So Finn will hop inside for us here. And let's see how it looks and give everything a final test. Doors open for 3 seconds with our sound effects. Close, the buttons reactivate. So that's all working well for us. We have our pit areas with our walkway and our decorations that we placed in part 1. Looking good. We have our movie-like V-shaped movie screen. There's our ceiling lights. We have our ability terminal to hack the system and set it to self-destruct when you're ready to in your game. This control panel has that nice view screen. Looks like it could be some sort of monitor for the shield and joysticks to manually control this shield dish. Got a trigger area. Are you ready? Accept, doors close. Ready? Accept, doors open. If you cancel, nothing happens. Now, when it comes to putting enemies in here, you probably want to introduce some sort of logic that deactivates this trigger area. Otherwise, every time you run into it, you're going to be activating that text proposal, which will be annoying. So we have our corridor here where the officer came through, that Han knocked into the kill zone and killed him in the movie. We have our power generating system. Thanks again to that brown bat for the use of the idea of the innators. That corridor there is where some stormtroopers come through when Han and his team finally get captured. And we have our kill zone with that famous Papa H classic screen. So there we have it. This is my take, my creation for the shield control room and the power generating system. So hope those of you that have followed my shield bunker build as well as part 1 and part 2 for the shield control room that this gives you a good head start if you want to create your own Endor Imperial bases. These are the 2 key elements from the movie. It's what we see most in the movie is that backdoor bunker entrance, as well as the shield control room here, where most of the activity happens. We do see a few other parts of the base, but these are the 2 most featured parts of the base from the movie. So I hope everyone has enjoyed the build. If you stick around, I do have one more little build exercise before this video ends, a bonus build for a cool little feature that I had in the main base. So stick around and I'll build it for you. Okay, we're back with Finn one last time for a little bonus build. I'm in the main part of the base here. And what I'm going to show you how to build, it's a fairly simple exercise, but it looks pretty cool, is the in-ground storage tanks, which is an idea I got from some images I saw online. So I've already placed some toys here. I have a trigger area. I have a straight rail here, which I've themed to the pipe rail theme. So pipe rail, that's what I set the theme as. And now we have this vertical rail corner, which I've also set the theme to the pipe rail. I'll grab this kiln boiler from the decorations, and we'll use this drawer as well to add in the other kiln decorations. And then to create the shape of the storage container, we have this short canyon curve. And once again, I've set my theme to power disk for Calhoun's command. the kiln or Imperial Space Station will work as well if you don't have Calhoun's command. And then for the top, we have the small corner hills also set to Calhoun's command. For the back part, we have this 3x3 block. Take my training piece, so we'll need to get that out of the way because you're going to need to put in the storage containers first. So I left the other one already there because I only need to show you how to build one. You can actually put in as many of these as you want. So first thing is determine what height you want. So that would be 2 blocks high. 3 blocks high would be on the surface, and you wouldn't need to worry about the terrain underneath. I went with 1 block high. I like the way it looked. So I'm just going to kind of line that up where it's in contact with my terrain blocks under for the back wall of the canyon there. And we'll use 4 of these to create our, and I need to move that other block first. Sorry about that. I didn't move it far enough out of the way when I was setting this up to make this little additional video here. So we'll complete this by putting in our 4th short canyon curve. And we'll grab the small corner hill, place 4 of these on top. And now we'll need a trigger area in order to pull our base terrain block up into our storage containers here. So you want to make sure you get it in the center so it hits all 4 of those canyon corners for each of these storage containers. Now I can grab my terrain block and move it back up to where it belongs. That's kind of a handy trick to do cool things. Now I can get rid of those. I'm going to pull this one up because I'm going to use it. Because now to blend in these other items, we're going to need to use the same trigger area trick. So I place one here, and of course to build 2 of them or 3 of them you would need to repeat these tricks. That pipe rail there does not need a trigger area, but these do. So the 2 on this side and the 2 on the right hand side that I left constructed, so you see that allows us to move that down into the storage container tank rather than sitting on top of it. And which I originally had that sitting on top, but then I did it this way and I thought it looked better being down low rather than sitting up so high. Alright, put a trigger area back here again. That will allow us to blend this 3x3 block into the back up against the canyon wall, like it goes back in behind there. That's what it's suggesting. And let's actually grab a few more of these trigger areas. We'll set them around each of these other 3 sides to put in our kiln decorations. So go ahead and grab our boiler again. And I kind of like the way this looked here on the front of it. Blend it in. And then these kiln machinery pieces oriented in that direction for this side. I kind of liked side by side. They look like pumps or something. I like the way they looked with 2 of them in there. In this kiln barrier, use this trigger area again here to blend this in, and it's up to you to decide how far inside of the tank you want to go. I decided to pull mine out close to the canyon wall there and set it just like that. we're done with these trigger areas, so we can get rid of them. And here's our storage tanks. So fairly simple to do, but looks really cool. Looks difficult, but actually quite simple to do. And I had this fantasy train here. I had to move that out of the way as well because of the bounding boxes. So I'm placing my my bush back where I had it originally. And for those that are curious about how I put this Death Star piece in there, so I placed the piece, put a trigger area around it, and that allowed me to put the train pieces blended into that Death Star pipe. So same trick, same result. Now we'll do the fun slide on these pipes. And that's the resultant appearance. And I like this much better than using the Nowhere storage tanks, which are white in color, and they have a good shape to them, but they just don't work in this toy box. The color is not correct. So there's our little bonus build for the technique I use to build these storage tanks down into the ground. So once again, I hope these build videos that I did for the bunker entrance as well as the shield control room and this little extra bonus build gives other Infiniteers and creators a good head start if you want to create your own Endor Imperial base toy boxes. You don't have to fully follow my ideas, but hopefully my ideas help inspire you to create your own ideas as well. So once again, as always, thank you for watching.